the qualitative work that I've done over my career has come in sort of fits and starts and not full-blown ethnographic pieces. So I did a Fulbright in Mexico, gathered some data there on, did kind of a comparative study with my wife, Catherine Herr, on the kids in Mexico, again, different social class schools, but this time focusing on kind of in-depth interviews with kids. And then some in-depth interviews with kids back in New Mexico. And so that was, sort of my next qualitative study. And then I got really interested in discourse analysis and, critical discourse analysis of policy texts and things like that. So I started doing some studies I did one of the exam for educational administrators, the state exam in New York, and the bulletin and the state standards, and did sort of a critical discourse analysis of the exam, because in the bulletin they give you the answers that people gave and the ratings the scorers gave and what the scorers said about the answers and so forth. And so I was able to sort of compare the standards with the scorers and that discourse and look at the various contradictions within those discourses and things. So I got really sort of interested, and also in a pragmatic sense, without the time to do full-blown ethnographic work, I was looking for methods that I could do were fairly rigorous, but not necessarily, field-based. And I think that there are now a lot of interesting methods that we can use besides the sort of traditional ethnographic methods, particularly in this policy context where texts become increasingly important. And of course, Dorothy Smith's work in institutional ethnography really does place texts as central to our understanding in an age when people are constantly interfacing with text, whether it's poor parents choosing schools and having to deal with the texts from the school district on school ratings and so on and so forth, of how people interface with text, I think is really increasingly important. So now I'm learning network analysis is my latest thing. So I've over the years, I think one of the things I think we have to keep doing is learning new methods as they, GIS and all these kind of new methods, the spatiality stuff, and I guess because I'm with this policy networks, I just realized that I need to understand how to study networks. It's not like I just chose it randomly, but learning new methods as you're asking new questions and needing to, either brush up or actually dig into some methods. So critical discourse analysis, network analysis, of a couple of methods that I've been using lately. But I would say that, again, probably because of my English background, I'm very comfortable with more essayist kind of work. And I think that should be viewed as more, I think we are overly empirical. And so everybody's producing all these empirical studies that are going out there, but there isn't enough, I think, work that's thoughtfully sort of looking at this body of work and kind of almost like literary criticism, saying, well, let's look at this work around X and what is this really saying, and sort of pull back and do that sort of meta-analysis of our research. A really good book review or a really good, can kind of get at that sometimes. But there's, I think, not enough sort of critique out there or debate. So I would say that a lot of the work I've done is not empirical. And I think that's unfortunately seen as sort of a deficit nowadays, but I think that good conceptual essayist kind of work can actually be very powerful and very important. And again, that comes out of the sort of literary criticism background that where we don't necessarily, in the humanities, we think differently about some of these issues.